I'm Jake, and this is my self-reflection on the first game team project, and then I'll do the second one after. The different things I'm going to be focusing on this video is my motivation and my self-organization. Starting with the motivation, what kept me motivated is mainly just the completion of getting things finished, such as the opening parts which I made, pushing this out, falls over. I wanted to get it done, but also make it look nice at the same time. The same thing with this over here. I wanted to do it as the best I could, having this go onto here, while it all working smoothly without any problems. And then same with a couple of the traps that I worked on. The main motivation was just trying to make it all work and look nice. The other part of my motivation came from the team itself. They were always checking in on what's going on and how far everything's coming along, and that itself was quite motivating. Some of the strategies that I employed was I would set personal goals. For example, this was one of the first things I worked on. I made it so started with finishing this before I moved on to anything else. I didn't want to start anything and leave it half done, so I started this, you cross through this falls down, but it also allows objects to still roll over it, such as the boulder. And also then when I moved on to this, I wanted to make sure that was perfect before starting this. And doing that one step at a time kept me motivated to finish it so I could do the next thing. Otherwise, if I would have moved on to something as it just barely working, I may have not gone back to it. So keeping that in mind kept me motivated for that. I also seeked feedback about everything I did, constantly checking in with people, making sure they enjoyed it, and then I'd take occasional breaks to not overwhelm myself. The second topic I'm going to be covering is self-organization. I organize tasks based on most importance. So, such as this part right here. This was one of the most important parts to the opening, as it's the first puzzle you come across, other than this. However, this was a inclusion much later, since I had time after doing the other stuff. To keep organized, I set it up on a board based on what's most important, what's least important, and go through them that way. I'd gauge the time of completion based on date and time, and then plan ahead on how much time the next thing could possibly take based on how long this feature took. Yeah, and then onto the Game Jam 2 game. This was Stick to It. My main motivation for the game was the thought of getting it done. It was something I was quite enthusiastic about making at first, although we did have quite a few setbacks of the game during making it. However, getting it finished was an achievement in itself for me. I just wanted to have the game working, as I had a vision of it in my head from the very beginning. I wanted to see it done. The team performance was also a bit motivating. Everyone was trying, everyone wanted to see it done too, and that helped towards the motivation. A few of the strategies I used here is I would set goals for myself. For example, the first thing I worked on was the actual glue stick moving and doing its thing, the whole flipping. That alone was quite a tedious process, which I couldn't get quite right. However, the process of getting it done from beginning to end was what kept me motivated to get it finished. I didn't want to leave it half done, and I was already motivated to get it working perfectly, so I kept going until it worked. I also kept seeking feedback to see what other people thought of the process as it was getting done. And I always try to take breaks during the process so I don't get overwhelmed. For the organization for this, project, I tried to stick it all in separate folders, all labeled for what everything is, such as we have obviously the characters in first person, which is the default folders for Unreal Engine 5. I did initially try to create my own character for it, which were working perfectly fine, but it was a few things that we didn't really have time to do on it, which were already implemented on the default character. But yeah, I tried to keep it all organized as much as I could while implementing my features. I'd also keep track of how many features I had done and the time it would take on Trello. I had things organized based on the time they would take to complete and also their importance, such as the glue stick's actual movement was pretty important, so that was at the top of the list. And then so on and so forth, all the way down to, I don't know, the light or something, just something minimal that didn't really matter. The way my self-organization changed throughout the first game jam was the realization of the importance of Trello. Uh, it's a lot easier than trying to remember what everyone's done, and you don't have to ask what people have done, as they'd mark it in Trello themselves. So, learning about that on the second project improved team performance generally, and made it so we all knew what was happening at once. And that's my reflection for the game jams.